The birth of the German Republic, a revolution by accident. In the autumn of 1918, Europe's Great War was drawing to a close. Germany, battered and defeated, was collapsing from within. The imperial system of the German Kaiser, Wilhelm II, was unraveling, and the country was exhausted, disillusioned by years of war. As allied nations watched from afar the proclamation of the Republic in Berlin on November 9, 1918, seemed like a turning point, as though a fresh start for Germany to be on the horizon. President Woodrow Wilson of the United States, who had been instrumental in peace negotiations, had made clear that a key condition for any armistice would be Germany's shift away from its militaristic, imperial system. In essence, the Allies wanted to see the abolition of the Hohenzollern monarchy. Wilhelm II was forced to abdicate, ending the rule of the Kaisers. All over Germany, royal families and dynasties were dissolved in rapid succession, and in their place, a republic was declared. However, the birth of this republic wasn't a carefully orchestrated event. It was born in confusion and chaos. A desperate situation in Berlin, in the German capital of Berlin, change was in the air. The streets were restless with general strikes, protests, and calls for political reform. Friedrich Ebert, the leader of the majority Social Democrats, was thrust into an unprecedented position. Ebert was a cautious man, a former saddle maker who had risen to lead the socialist movement, but he wasn't a revolutionary by nature. He had hoped to establish a constitutional monarchy, similar to that of Britain, believing that maintaining some elements of the old order would provide stability. He was deeply skeptical of radical change, famously saying he hated revolution like sin. Yet events around him were moving faster than his intentions. A group of radical socialists, known as the Spartacists, led by the charismatic and fiery Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, were gathering at the Kaiser's palace with plans to declare a Soviet-style republic. These left-wing activists believed in worker councils and a socialist government inspired by the recent Bolshevik revolution in Russia. If the Spartacists moved first, Ebert feared Germany would spiral into civil war. A republic declared on impulse, inside the Reichstag, the German parliament, Ebert and his colleague Philipp Scheidemann were discussing what to do in the face of the growing revolutionary fervor. Suddenly, with little warning, Scheidemann made a bold decision. Without consulting his peers, he rushed to a window overlooking a crowd gathered in Berlin's Königsplatz, and with a voice loud enough to carry across the square, declared Germany a republic, calling it the German Republic. Ebert was outraged by Scheidemann's impulsive action. He had still harbored hopes of saving the monarchy, but now, with the proclamation in the open, the decision had been made. Thus, Germany's new republic came into being almost by accident, without clear direction or a well-laid plan. A shabby trick by the old guard. When the new German Republic was declared, it faced serious challenges right from the start. Despite the fact that Ebert and his Social Democratic Party wanted to take control, they were essentially pushed into it by Germany's military leaders, particularly Generals Paul von Hindenburg and Erich Ludendorff. The generals knew that they were losing the war and that the Kaiser the Emperor had to abdicate. They needed a new government to take over, but they also wanted to avoid taking the blame for Germany's defeat. So, they forced Ebert and the Social Democrats into power, knowing they would have to handle the collapse of the empire and negotiate the end of the war. But there was a catch. By putting Ebert in charge, the military could later blame the new civilian government for the humiliating terms of the peace settlement and the war's loss. This move was a way to protect the military and conservative elites from being held responsible for Germany's defeat. In this way, the new republic was set up to fail from the very beginning. An unlikely pact, the Ebert-Groener Agreement. On the evening of November 9th, a remarkable phone call took place between Ebert and General Wilhelm Groener, a senior figure in the German military. Groener was pragmatic and understood the volatile situation. He reached out to Ebert and proposed a pact. If Ebert promised to resist the revolutionary forces and prevent a Bolshevik-style takeover, the military would support the new government and help it establish control. This agreement, though not publicly known for years, had a profound effect on Germany's future. Ebert accepted the deal, and in doing so, he made a crucial compromise. While it guaranteed the army's backing, it also tied the Republic's fate to an institution that had always harbored loyalty to the old imperial order. The military, especially its leadership, would never fully embrace the new democratic system and ultimately undermine it. Struggles with the Spartacists. Meanwhile, leftist forces continued to push for deeper revolutionary changes. The Spartacists, led by Luxemburg and Liebknecht, grew increasingly bold, hoping to spark a true socialist revolution across Germany. Throughout December, Germany saw the rise of workers' and soldiers' councils, similar to the Soviets in Russia, attempting to assume local power across cities and towns. They were dissatisfied with the slow pace of reforms under the Social Democrats, whom they saw as too cautious. In response, Ebert appointed Gustav Norske as Minister of National Defense. Norske, a former butcher turned socialist parliamentarian, was pragmatic and tough, earning a reputation as a bloodhound. Norske had already shown his resolve by quelling a mutiny among sailors earlier that year, and he was prepared to use force against the Spartacists. Bloody Week, the suppression of the Spartacist uprising. In early January 1919, Berlin erupted into violence. With Norske directing the effort, government forces, including right-wing paramilitary units known as the Freikorps, cracked down hard on the Spartacists. The violence reached its peak during what came to be known as Bloody Week. Luxemburg and Liebknecht were captured and summarily executed by Freikorps soldiers. Their death sent shockwaves through Germany's leftist circles and deepened the divisions between moderate and radical socialists. A fractured republic from the start, the brutal suppression of the Spartacists quelled the immediate threat of a Bolshevik-style uprising. But the new German Republic was already fractured. Many working-class Germans, particularly those who supported the socialists, resented the Social Democratic leaders for their alliance with the military and their cooperation with conservative forces. Elections held shortly afterward revealed the fragmented state of German politics. The Social Democrats, despite their influence, did not win a majority, and they were forced to work with middle-class and conservative parties to form a government. The conservative factions, meanwhile, had reorganized and entered parliament, still clinging to hopes of one day restoring the monarchy. Key figures like Gustav Stresemann, who initially supported the military's role in government, continued to advocate for traditional power structures. The Republic's fragile foundation, as the National Assembly met in the city of Weimar to draft a new constitution, Germany's path forward remained uncertain. Although the Weimar Constitution would establish a democratic framework, the Republic's foundation was shaky. The army, industrialists, and conservative elite harbored doubts about the legitimacy of the new government. This resistance, combined with the blame placed on the Social Democrats for Germany's defeat and the Treaty of Versailles, would undermine the Republic at every turn. The government, initially called the German Republic, was declared on November 9, 1918. After the end of World War I, it officially became the Weimar Republic in 1919, when the new constitution was adopted. The fragile Weimar Republic was thus born, burdened by the weight of Germany's imperial past, the anger of the revolutionary left, and the plotting of conservatives who never accepted its legitimacy. It was a government that, from the start, carried the seeds of its own undoing, as a nation torn by old loyalties, resentments, and ambitions struggled to find a new direction.